What I've chosen to present to you today is really just a melody, more than a full-blown piece. The song is called Taboo. It's short and simple, and it goes like this. Bum bum, ba-da-da-da-da-dum, bum bum, ba-da-da-da-da-dum. That's about it. It was written by a female Cuban composer, Margarita Licamona, in 1941. There's not a whole lot that I can tell you about the piece, about the melody itself, other than to give you some background on its title. You probably know what the word taboo means. In English, it's usually used contextually to describe something forbidden or embarrassing, something to be not talked about. What you may not know is that the word was borrowed from the native Hawaiian word hapu, K-A-P-U, which has spiritual roots. In Hawaiian culture, chiefs, the ali'i, would designate certain foods or practices as kapu, depending on the harvest season. Men and women eating together, for example, would be considered a kapu practice during the Hawaiian makahiki, which is like a Hawaiian Thanksgiving. The reason why I'm making a distinction between taboo being just a melody and an actual piece of music is that, to me, it's the arrangements and the orchestrations of that melody that we should be more concerned with. Since the melody was written in 1941, it's been arranged, orchestrated, rearranged, and reorchestrated dozens, if not hundreds of times. And in fact, the popularity amongst musicians of reworking this tune into their own orchestrations has even launched an entire genre of music that we know as exotica. So the fact that the tune is popular and gets recorded a lot doesn't necessarily mean very much, because as we know, pop music, especially in the 30s and 40s, has been reworked and recorded such that those tunes have become jazz standards. And so jazz standards, you might think they would undergo a similar treatment, in that musicians learn them, they improvise on them, and then they record them. The difference here is that it's the nature of the arrangement that's on display, not the chops or the interpretation or the improvisational ability of the musicians. In fact, with the exception of very limited improvisations by some percussionists, there's little or no improvisation in these arrangements. Today I'm going to play for you 3 excerpts of different recordings. Each arrangement on its own is only about 3 or 4 minutes long, but we're just going to listen to a couple of clips. You'll notice that the arrangements are each very different from each other. This is again in contrast to arrangements of classical pieces, where varying orchestrations still sound similar. However, striking similarities between the recordings, and perhaps a defining characteristic of what makes taboo and similar pieces exotic, is each arranger's dedication to making the music sound otherworldly, and thus an example of exotica. The first recording we're going to hear was done in 1958 by a group of Hawaiian musicians, led by Arthur Lyman, the group's vibraphonist. This is really the first recording that helped to put Hawaiian musicians on the map for music other than traditional Hawaiian music. In this clip, you'll hear 3 things. First, the presence of Latin percussion. You'll hear the guiro, which is a scraper, the quijada, which is, I actually have one, it's an ass's jaw. You hold the jaw of the donkey by the teeth, and you smack it, and the teeth rattle. It makes sound like a precursor to the modern vibraslap. So those are some Latin American instruments that you'll hear that will recall the Cuban roots of the melody. Second, you'll hear man-made bird calls done by the band members. Finally, you'll hear the usage of both piano and vibraphone. I think it's these things that make listeners feel like they're listening to music from another place.
Do you have the amplifier set on the computer?
No. taste of that recording. The next excerpt I'd like to play for you is from an Australian film scorer named Doug Gamely. I don't really know very much about this recording, except that it came from a side project that was done called Paradise Island. Aside from the vibraphone, another instrument that was very prominent in exotica music was the flute. I think the reason why they used so much flute was because many indigenous cultures have their own version of the flute, as a bamboo instrument. For example, in Hawaii we have the opuhono, which is the nose flute, and in Japan they have like the shakuhachi. So I think this is going to be a great recording for you to hear because it kind of gives like a full orchestra perspective to what exotica music can be. Even though this treatment has nothing in common in terms of instrumentation, for example, there's no vibraphone and no piano or anything like that with the other recordings, I think Goliath still manages to get the mysticism and exoticism out of the instruments. Of course, Taboo is just one of many melodies that has become an exotica standard. And the brief glimpse of what we're hearing today are just a sample of the types of creativity found throughout the exotica genre. I myself have become very interested in this music lately because I lead a group called WAITIKI that performs exotica. And so I've been spending much time listening, transcribing, and studying this music. Thank you for this opportunity to share exotica and song Taboo.